Hello friends, we're back. My name is Babs and I want to talk about the new series. This is going to go into the intro of the new book that I'm reading. It's called Shame Informed Therapy: Treatment Strategies to Overcome Core Shame and Reconstruct the Authentic Self. This is by Patti Ashley, PhD, LPC. So I'm in love with this book already, and in my update video that I just posted recently, I had discussed that, or mentioned that I just went through a dark night of the soul, which is basically a spiritual depression, but it's really just, it's that hitting that pit, if that makes sense. So that really dark place, and I'll go into all of those different signs and what it feels like to experience that in another video. But today I want to focus on the intro of the book. So this book goes into how having shame in oneself, like true core shame that's suppressed, can project itself through other obstacles, i.e. depression, anxiety, self-criticism, like to the extreme. And then low self-esteem. Those are the four that I struggle with the most. Core shame is the umbrella, and then everything else underneath is often what's treated, when really what needs to be treated is the core shame. And not a lot of therapists, at least not the ones that I've been to, have been able to uncover that that's what's going on with me. I figured it out on my own, and it took a really awful situation for me to piece that together, but nonetheless, I figured it out, and now we're going somewhere, so that's what matters. Basically, how I'm taking notes throughout this process is I'm only going to write down the notes that resonate personally with me. So this is going to be a very personal series. It's kind of scary for me to be so vulnerable because I will be discussing things about my life that I've either discussed in the past and I don't really like talking about still, or it's just something that I've just found out and I need to make peace with. So either way, it's going to be a little rough for me to get through, but I ultimately feel that this is important, not only for my healing, but for others, especially you if you're watching and you feel these things and you're going through it too. You're not alone. I'm very much with you, and we will get through it together. So the first quote that I wrote down is, "This shame-based fear of being exposed as flawed can create an over-exaggerated need to be perfect and free of mistakes." This has been an issue for me since I can even recall. This is even before my abuse happened, and this, I gotta be careful with this because it started with dance class. I'm not going to front, that's where it started for me, this perfectionism. And it's not the fact of having dance class in and of itself, right? I'm not shaming those who take dance classes or sports or what have you. It's just, this is how it happens. And I guess it's something to be aware of if your children are also in these activities, to make sure that they're okay with who they are and their performance level as is. In dance, I was always the one to be in front. And of course, as I grew older, it changed because I was met with people who were a little more advanced than me. And I don't like talking about this so much because it feels like I'm gloating, but I'm not. I'm just explaining to you how it was for me, so you can kind of see where my current issue is. When I was a child, like very first started off with dancing, I think I was three or four. For those baby classes, I was always in front. I was always placed on the front X on the stage for performances, and even as the years went by, I was often picked out of the group to perform the combination in front of the class, to like take notes and see how I did it, or like see the extra flair that I added. And I just always put my personality into my dance. I've always been that way. In every performance that I give my all and then a little extra, just because that's who I am. But looking back, I can see how much love and appreciation that I was getting from my dance teacher. And she's lovely, by the way. I wish I was still in contact with her. I absolutely adored her as a kid. Absolutely loved her. So, anyway. And to also have my peers, oh, I really liked how you did that. Or can you show me how to do this? Can you help me with this? Like, that always gave me confidence boost, right? So I think that it was programmed in me that if I keep performing at this desired level, at this optimal level, then I will then receive the gratification, the, you know, pat on the back, the attention. So when my abuse started at home, especially, I really relied on my dance to feel better. But even in dance, that's when I recall being insecure about my body for the first time. And none of these things were inflicted onto me. And that's the thing that really hurts the most, is that no one intentionally did these things to me. No one pointed out my body, shape, form, whatever, to me. That was just something that I was looking at myself in the dance mirror in a costume that we had, and I was like, oh wow, like my thighs are bigger than the other girls. So that's when I first had a body insecurity, and it was nothing, that was just in my head. That was my own doing. And same with the perfectionism. No one was like, well, you have to be perfect. Because it's tough, because when you're in competitive dancing, obviously the pressure's amped up a little bit, as opposed to, you know, your recreational dance with one recital at the end of the year, you know. But like when you're competing and traveling and in front of judges and things like that, that's, pressure gets amped a little bit. So that was, of course, one thing. There was a higher expectation of me because I was at the level to be a competitive dancer. However, she wasn't vicious about it. She was only disappointed when she knew that I wasn't at my usual level. Because once it's established that you can reach a certain level, sometimes it gets, but that just becomes what's expected of you, because you've hit it before, you can hit it again. So I mean, that's maybe the only flaw that I would have seen, but other than that, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't like, what's her name, Abby from Dance Moms? Nothing like that. Oh my goodness, that's just straight up abuse. But you know, it's just, I absolutely love my dance teacher. Love her. Hope you're doing good. But in my own head, that's where that demon was saying, well, you have to be perfect in order to get this attention, in order to get this applause, because I really wasn't getting that at home. You know, I was getting abuse, and then I just don't remember, I don't really remember being attended to when my abuse was happening. Like, it's hard because I don't want to name names, but it's just, I don't remember getting significant attention during that time, like significant, healthy, positive attention. I just remember getting that abuse from the memories that I do have. I've blacked out a lot of it, so I was relying just on my dance and the gratification that dance gave me. But that also led to my perfectionism. So perfectionism is to avoid the critical scrutiny of others and not be exposed as weak, vulnerable, a sham, or fraudulent. So this kind of ties in with the dangers of pressurizing people to continue to reach a level that they've already reached. So we're pressured to reach those levels, or encouraged to reach those levels consistently, but we're not given the proper tools in preparation for when we don't meet those levels, because we're not perfect, and we're not going to be able to reach the same level of consistency every single time. There's just human error, delays, lots of things out of our control, things that are in our control. There's so many influences that really have a say in how things work out, and it's just not as simple as being able to maintain that every time. There's always going to be something else aiding to a situation. Those expectations become self-destructive, because then we start harboring those expectations for ourselves. So when we're expecting to reach the same level of consistency every time, and we're not given the tools needed for when we don't, that's when that thought process becomes self-destructive, because you are then considering yourself as weak because you weren't able to lift the 100-pound difference in weight. You know, whatever. If you're lifting at the gym and one day you hit 250 bench press, and then the next week you really can't reach 200, you're like, well, I must be weak then. What am I doing wrong? And it's just, you know, maybe your body just needs a break. Like, it's okay. You know, it's what you are able to do and what you're unable to do. to me, doesn't define who you are. What defines who you are is how you react to what you can and cannot do, what you choose to do with the things that you can and cannot do. That defines your character. Your ability to do these things does not define you in your core. So when you put all this pressure on yourself to be perfect without a safety plan or a safety net of what happens when you're not perfect, it's detrimental to your health. Point blank simple. That's what happened to me. That's what I struggle with. Everyone's got this idea that perfectionism is attainable. So when perfection isn't attained, it's like a you thing. It's conditioned to say that, well, it's because something that you did or something that you didn't do. And that's why this thing isn't perfect. And that's where that shame comes from. Perfectionism is one I'm going to call symptom of core shame. Other few symptoms that I struggle with are isolation, underachievement, blame, and facades. With isolation, oh, do I isolate? I do. There are times where I'm a super social butterfly and I want to go do things. And then there are times where I'm in straight hermit mode and I do not leave my house. I do not, especially now with COVID and all this shit, I don't leave, really. And then oftentimes I don't have energy to go out and see people. And even if I do, it's like a 2 to 4 hour max sitch. Like I'm in and out, is it? I'm really exhausted. I used to isolate because of the worry of not fitting in, of the worry of not being as funny as other people or not as relatable as other people, not being as pretty as the other people. Like, that doesn't even matter, for one, but that's just something that is riddled deep with me, and it's a self-esteem thing that I'm working on. But I went from isolating myself for fear of rejection to now isolating myself because I just don't have the energy and I'm taking care of me. And instead of trying to please everyone else by visiting and seeing everybody all the time, I'm making sure that I'm okay first, because I let myself slip all the fucking time and I'm over it. So I isolate for the better of my health, but I'm slowly feeling more social. Underachievement. So with this, it's not the fact of underachieving that brings the shame. It's a shame that your work is not going to be considered great in your eyes, so thus you're going to underachieve. So you're going to not hit the goals that you know you can make, because whether it's going to take a while or it's not the right time, the elements are out of place, just something is preventing you from even starting a project because of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of being imperfect. When you find yourself, because underachievement looks different for everybody, so I'm trying to be careful with this. When you notice that you're not hitting goals or stepping stones that you know you can make, that you know you're capable of making, and you're blatantly not even trying to get those milestones, that's something to consider. Like, maybe I've got some core shame going on, because you're not even trying because you're just worried about it not being perfect right away, or not being the way that you envision it right away. And most times it's not. Most of the time it's going to take extra effort. It's going to take trial and error, some flips, some flops. It's going to happen. But underachievement's huge for me too. Hello, so I'm editing. It is it's April 14th, 9:45 p.m. So I'm editing the intro video that you were just watching, obviously. So I have a thing to mention. So when I had talked about isolation and how I have focused on isolating myself to better my mental state, I have not been doing that as of recent. Well, I guess, okay, there was one day where I really should have just stayed home, and this is actually where all of my, like, downfall started for this past week. So Sunday, I really should have just stayed home, or at least not gone out in public. So I did, and it was just a miserable time, and it was, like, you know, I felt really guilty about it, like, and the person I was with didn't deserve, like, a miserable hangout, so I was just, like, felt really gross, and like, I was torn apart by it, because I'm like, this person does not deserve this kind of behavior from me, but I'm like, I also have the right to feel my feels. But I guess instead I realized instead of saying, yeah, let's go out, I should have said, well, let's go do something like in private. Let's go do something where we can talk, you know, in hushed tones and not have to shout over music, that kind of thing. So I should have done that, or just been like, let's just hang out at my place, like let's just chill. One of the two. But I definitely did not put myself first. I thought that going out would help, but I also I wasn't in tune with how miserable I actually was. I hadn't come to terms with it yet. I just knew that I was miserable. So I gotta self-reflect more and really consider how I'm feeling when people ask to hang out. So I wanted to be clear on that. I did fuck that up this past week, but I'm learning. I've been more in tune with my feelings as of late, so especially with this past week. But I also do want to cut this video off here. I still have 26 more minutes of footage to go through, and we're already at 15 minutes with this. So I'm going to split this into 2 parts, and I'm probably going to have to split up the like chapters in the book into parts as well. I really don't want to push more than like 20 minutes for videos. I really don't even want to push 15, but this little extra is going to push us over 15. So that's all for now, and I will probably upload the second half within the next like 4 days or so. So we'll see, but good night.